Hey guys, boy am I in for a treat today. CZ Shadow 2 single action. That's right, the single action only version. Pretty new on the market, and this is on loan to the channel, so I appreciate that very much. This is not my gun. I wish it was. It is basically the Shadow 2 with just a different trigger system, just a different firing system in it. It is single action only, meaning there is no double action first pull. The other thing that's different is this beautiful straight trigger, much straighter and flatter than the double action single action version. Well, the other thing to point out right off the bat is you can see that that has a different grip on it than the stock grip. The stock grip would be the same color as this trigger, a nice light blue aluminum. The owner of this gun put lock grips on it, and I certainly can't fault him for that because I did the very same thing to mine. That is, to my knowledge, the only change, the only upgrade, and it is definitely an upgrade. Well, since this gun is on loan to me, I can't take my sweet time with it. I got to get my work done, share it with you, and get it back to its rightful owner. Although, I think it's going to be a tearful goodbye when I have to do that. It does have some rounds through it. It is not brand new, but this will be the very first shots that I have put through it. So let me do that right now. Oh man. Oh baby. Oh man. That is a sweet trigger. That is a surprise first pull trigger. Very nice. So I'm trying to think if there's really any reason to have a double action, single action versus just the single action on the Shadow 2, considering especially how amazing this thing is shooting. It is a sweet one. Sights look like they are right on it too. Mm-hmm. It is a bright, sunny day today. So sunny, I put on a hat. I normally am not a hat guy, but man, the sun was all kind of in my eyes. So I've had this thing laying on the table here in the sun, and I'm reminded as I pick it up just how scorching warm the Shadow 2 can get. But these G10 grips make it so much more comfortable. If this thing had the stock aluminum grips on it, it would be like untouchable. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gun Owner, for putting lock grips on this bad boy. All right, let's shoot some steel. Ah! Look at that paint fly. The magic target that you can't hit. All right. All right, I got to defeat these couple that I didn't hit before. All right, I think I found my groove. Nope. Those little targets on that shooting tree they can be tricky. They're about 4 inches square and they're at a pretty steep angle. And they don't move unless you hit them just right. It takes more than a glancing blow to swing them around, that's for sure. I think the guys at Tactical AR 500 Targets that designed that shooting tree are in cahoots with the ammo makers. Okay, I'm going to put some on paper just to see how well I can shoot this gun. Because remember, that's really what we're testing here. We're testing how well I personally shoot this gun, you know, on this day and all that. I have absolutely no doubt that in a proper machine rest, mechanically, this gun probably could put just about everything in one hole at the distance of 12 yards that I'm going to be shooting at. So we're really not testing the gun. And we're really not testing the ammo, except we're going to find out maybe does the gun prefer one type of ammo over another, one bullet weight over another, that sort of thing. I'm going to start out with this stuff. 115 grain ball from Sig Sauer, Elite Performance. Sig provided this ammo to the channel. Once again, we are 12 yards from that orange dot. Okay, that was 10 of those. Looks pretty good. And now, hollow points. 124 grain Sig Sauer Elite Performance V-Crown. My preferred carry load. We'll see how it shoots with that. There's those. And then wrapping it up with some Federal. And this is 124 grain ball ammo, full metal jacket. All right, so there are 30 rounds, 3 different types of ammo, and it looks like they all found the target. Good stuff. You You know, I had somebody in the comments of a video one time, I think it was a head-to-head, accused me of deliberately shooting one gun worse than the other, or shooting one gun better than the other, you know, whichever. Yeah, I wish I had that much skill that I could do that. Okay, just for fun, 10 rounds each from the Shadow 2 and the Shadow 2. The double action, single action, my gun, and the single action only, the borrowed gun. I just want to see how the two triggers feel, you know, back to back, and if I happen to shoot one maybe a little bit better than the other or whatever. So, I don't know, fun little experiment. Hey, you got two Shadow 2s, that's what you do. You shoot them both. Okay, I'm going to start out with mine. This is the double action, single action. Just to make it a real comparison between the two, I'm going to start out double action. There's no decocker. You have to drop that hammer by hand, the old-fashioned way. The way of our forefathers. All right, here we go, just for fun. Definitely a longer trigger reach for that first double action pull, no doubt about it. Same sights, of course, same ergonomics, including the grips. I don't know, you know, the single action trigger on this bad boy is pretty sweet. I'm not sure if there's really much difference, single action to single action. The feel of this trigger is one that I absolutely love, have loved it for a long time. This is that nice nickel plated or chrome finished trigger with a smooth face. And it's a little different than the aluminum trigger on the single action that has vertical serrations. Okay, now the single action. So nice, so nice. It would be hard to choose which trigger is better. They felt pretty much the same to me in single action. Obviously the double action pull of the other one is longer and heavier. Still not bad by double action standards at all. But once you're in single action, other than the geometry of the trigger and the texture, you know, they feel the pull weight and everything, and the stroke, the distance that you pull it, and the crispness, all that feels pretty same. Okay, I promised I would check the trigger, and check the trigger I shall. Using the Lyman digital gauge. Again, this is a single action only pistol, so that's the only measurement we're going to take. Wow, that is light. Okay, starting now. £4, 2.5 ounces. That is very nice. Very respectable. Now, set him there for a minute. Voila. Let's try the single action trigger on this guy and see how they compare. Ooh, look at that. 3 pounds, 10 ounces. It's almost 3 pounds, 11 ounces. So the Shadow 2 double action, single action is certainly showing that it is still pretty relevant when it comes to sweet triggers. Another small comparison between these two handguns, something I noticed at the range. First of all, I'm going to talk about the sight, basically. So you'll notice that there's no red dot on mine. And that actually came off, I want to say, sometime during the first review work I was doing originally with this gun. That red dot came off. It's paint, and it's like a, you know, like an epoxy or something, and it literally just came off like a little red disc and floated away. So I don't have a red dot on that side. I have one on this side. Of course, that has it on both. So these pistols have an ambidextrous thumb safety, whether it's double or single or just single. The owner of this gun did the same thing that I did, and he swapped out the left side, right-handers, safety for the wide one, which is provided with the pistol. And that gives you, let me put the hammer back so you can engage it, and that gives you a much more easily operated control. And it also, if you like to shoot 1911 style, kind of gives you a thumb rest to put it on if you don't want your thumb down here. Okay, but there's more to a trigger than just its pull weight measured on a scale, right? We can all agree on that. So let's take a look at the operation of both of these triggers, and of course mainly this one, because this is the one we're really talking about. But I think comparing it to the double action, single action is a pretty legitimate thing to look at in this video, because if you're looking at a Shadow 2, you may be wanting to decide between the double action, single action, and just the single action. All right, let me move this one out of the way so it's not visually distracting. Cock the hammer back on the single action, and let's take a look at this trigger pull. So here's the trigger at rest, fully forward. There is that much take up. It's pretty short. That is, you know, probably 1/8 of an inch, depending on where you measured it, but very short amount of take up right there. And then you can feel the wall. Very, very crisp break. Nice and light and crisp. No over travel. Now let's take a look at the reset. So we'll let the trigger out slowly. And right there's your reset. That about is the reverse of that initial pull, right? And almost no take up whatsoever. So once you hit that reset point, you're pretty much right back at that wall, ready for the next break. So show that again. Reset and break. Very, very nice. Very nice. And it's a nice feeling trigger. It's got just a little bit of curve, but it's a much straighter configuration than the double single, which is a much more traditional CZ shape, but still not quite as much. The traditional CZ75 is even more curved than this. All right, so let's look at that same scenario with this one. Now this is a double single action, so obviously what we can do is this. And then cycle the action and the reset. Ooh, it's about the same. And then you are again just right at that wall. And that beautiful light crisp break. Now when this trigger is at double action fully forward, it's a bit of a stretch. It's a long way out there. The fact that it's a smooth face trigger helps me because it allows my finger to sort of slide across the face of the trigger as I'm kind of overextending. But if we look at, to make it fair comparison, okay, so here is the single action. If you were to load the gun, charge it, and start out in single action, this is where your trigger would be. Very, very, very nice. And take up just a tiny little bit, maybe about the same, right? Nice wall. Feels like the wall and the break point is a little further back on this one. Reset and break. So I don't know, I'm going to have to call it a really close, almost too close to call, tie between these two as far as performance of the trigger. Now if you like the shape of one better than the other, that'll come into play. And obviously the action type. But as far as pull weight, they are very close. And as far as performance and the dynamics of the triggers, very, very close. So I noticed when I was shooting the two guns that it seemed like the trigger reach was a little shorter on the double action single action when in single action mode than it is on the single action only. And it certainly does look that way now, doesn't it? So I'm going to measure the two. Now because they both have aftermarket grips, and the aftermarket grips are not identical. They're slightly different in size, so I can't measure the thickness there to give you a just an opinion grip index, because that would be meaningless. Okay, 2.615, and that is on the double action single action. I'm going to write that down just in case I need this number later. And on the single action, you can see already it won't fit, so we got to come back out and come down to try and find the middle of the trigger. 2.746. So we've got almost 130 thousandths, and that is over 1/8 of an inch. So there's 1/8 of an inch, let's call it, difference between the reach in favor of the double action single action. Quite interesting. Okay, what else is different between these two guns? So the hammer is a little bit different. You can see it there. Same general shape, but the double action's hammer, which is on the top here, the orange grip, is physically a little bit smaller, but it's a thicker metal. So presumably a little bit heavier hammer. And on the bottom, on the single action, it's a more skeletonized hammer and slightly different shaped. So that is a very, very small difference, but a difference. And that is just about it. They have the exact same pair of sights. Everything about these pistols in every other way is the same. Now, as you can see, both of the guns are wearing aftermarket grips. They are both wearing lock grips. I'm a huge fan. I already told you about the lock grips that are on this gun in another video. And it was nice to see that these lock grips have been put on this gun before I borrowed it. First of all, the gun owner obviously has good taste in grips, not only in the brand, but also in the style. They've got that same Coke bottle shape as the ones I have. It's just a different texture. I forget what they call these, like a roughneck or something like that. I can't remember the name of this texture, but it is equally nice. It's just a different feel. So this gun would have come with grips, aluminum grips, that would match the color of this trigger. In fact, he did offer to give me the grips if I wanted them, the originals, and I could have put them on, but I didn't see any point in doing that because I'd much rather shoot it with this on there. So that's it, guys. There is not much different between these two guns other than single action versus double action, single action, and you're really not getting what I would say is a better trigger with this gun versus the single action on this gun. It's just a different shaped trigger, different textured trigger. So really, again, comes down to your preference on that. But they are both amazing pistols, incredibly wonderful to shoot, seriously accurate. I could just go on and on. So I guess I would say if you're trying to decide between Shadow 2 single action and the Shadow 2 double action single action, you're already guaranteed to come out on top with a good choice. This gun, fantastic. The only real shame, the only real bad thing about it is that I got to give it back.